All right, guys. We got Aaron Cox from Greymass in the house. Things are going to be real good. And anyway, I just wanted to start with this little video from our friend M Blue. The Tiamo collectible love drop is coming for uplift.art on February 13th. So check this out. Mostly, I just want this volcano just in my life.
Man, I really like doing this show with you. Like I was kind of late because I was busy doing like cool stuff. And then I come on here and I realized that like we were both busy doing cool stuff. So that's pretty awesome.
Except like the promo that I'm doing for my good buddy M Blue, I forgot the epic sound, which is like the whole thing.
I was sure you did that intentionally so that we can reveal it at short periods of time.
Yes, what I meant to say was I would reveal it tomorrow on tomorrow's show. You get the visuals today. You'll get the visuals and the audio tomorrow, which is totally my plan. That was 100% my plan. Aaron, I think you're muted. We got Aaron Cox from Greymass on. I'm super stoked about it, frankly. There he is.
Hey guys.
the way that we start these shows every morning is I ask everybody what they are grateful for this morning. It could be big, could be tiny, doesn't matter. It just has to be real. And then we throw it up on these permanent monuments that live in the cathedral at the center of the uplift. So what are you grateful for this morning?
Some good coffee and a good slice of coffee cake.
I like it. There's a bakery theme going on here,
right?
So awesome. while you throw that up, Aaron, it's great to have you here.
Thanks.
If you don't know, if you don't know who Aaron is, he's essentially part of Greymass, which is, I would say, a fan favorite right now in the block producer space. And there's a little post that we put together on a few of our social channels. You can read a little bit of background information about Aaron and Greymass. But why don't you give your own self-introduction? Because those always go so much better than somebody else introducing you, I feel.
Sure. I am, like you said, Aaron Cox. I am one of the founding members of the Greymass team. It's a little group of kind of people we've been building up over the past couple of years to kind of try to push this tech forward and build things that the community needs to succeed. Most people from the early days will know us from our work in wallets. That's probably where most people from nowadays know us too, as a matter of fact. But we also have worked pretty deeply with the kind of the APIs behind the scene, that kind of technical layer of stuff. And we've been involved in the delegated proof of stake scene now for years and years, since before EOS even. It's been quite a wild journey, learning lots of things, and just feels like we're kind of building up to this monumental thing.
So fun fact for you, Corey, did you know that Greymass has actually their own kind of like podcast?
I didn't know that.
Would you care to take a venture at what the name might be?
Is it called the Greymass podcast?
It's very close. I think it's called Coffee with Greymass.
Oh, is it really? Oh, there you go. So that's I mean, it's very coffee themed this morning. I actually have done two shows, one called Coffee on the Dock and one just called #Coffee, because we lost the dock and just kind of kept coffee in the name. It's super imaginative when it comes to naming stuff. But right. I like that. I'm gonna check that out. What kind of stuff do you guys usually talk about on that pod?
We focus a lot on, we'll take like an issue and build an episode about it. It's not, we don't do episodes just on a regular cadence. It's whenever we have kind of a topic we want to jump on. That's when we'll sit down and try to get either some guests or pull some people internally to talk about the topic. It's not quite, I don't know. I don't know where I was going with that.
So basically, you guys just like, when you have something to talk about, you've got the forum that you've built up to talk about.
Yeah, exactly. We have, we could write a blog post about something, or we can sit down and do a show about it. So luckily we have a good crew that we can, sit down and actually kind of produce these kind of things just as an audio only podcast and try to keep it topical. I think the last one we did was about the resource model, and that was a month or two ago or something.
And so that's the updated resource model, right?
Yeah,
presumably, yeah. So what like for lay people? So like, we've talked to a couple people about it, but I feel like it, kind of. Is it the case? Let me just maybe ask it this way: is it the case that for the end user, like derps like me, not very much is going to change? We're basically just making it more efficient for the kinds of dApps and projects that have been. Basically taking care of the usage as much as they possibly could. Just behind the scenes.
Yeah, it's not going to change much for the end user by itself, but it's a good step forward to kind of enabling services that will make it easier for everyone, even those that don't understand the system, altogether. Scott on our team, during our conversations about the resource model, described it as this system, once it's deployed, will increase how fair, or the fairness property of the resources on the network. Like, it will improve how accessible it is, essentially. Not in terms of a user interface, but like how it's actually designed behind the scenes. So it's one baby step forward to making this truly, that much easier to use.
Cool.
And then we've got our systems like Fuel that will hopefully make it even easier for everyone to use, which will be built on top of that.
So what can you tell us about the Fuel system?
Yeah, a lot of people have probably experienced it today. It's if you've used Anchor and you've used kind of one of the dApps or Anchor itself, it is something that will cover the transaction costs for you in free for a limited capacity, which is how we've been running it for the last year or so. But in the future, it will also either offer you some sort of subscription or some sort of fees that, you don't have to deal with the kind of the complicated side of things. You can just have this simple presentation of, oh, it's going to cost this much.
Yeah.
So it's all about just making it easy.
Yeah, I love that. My first interaction with that was actually using Wombat. We actually have Adrian from Wombat on tomorrow. I freaking love that guy. But it was basically like, hey, do you want to pay $1 and get like 100 transactions a month? And I'm like, or a day or some stupid thing. I'm like, yes, yeah, sure. Okay. Let's do that. Right. And it was super simple, just went straight to normal sort of fiat payment channels. And I didn't have to think about it. And the user experience kind of felt familiar, right? Like, if you're going to be a quote unquote power user or whatever, if you're going to be using a lot of these things, is it worth a month, you're $1 a month to do it? And now that was a really, really easy question for me to answer. Yep. And it was seamless and I never had to think about it again, which again, as a derp it worked out really good.
Yeah. And a lot of what we've seen with wallets like that, and I mean, you can see it in Token Pocket and some of the other wallets as well, is these groups have built very specific solutions for their wallets. And what we're trying to do as a BP behind the scenes and as a group building a wallet is build a solution that works across all wallets. Like that's the ideal situation is that, you're not stuck using wallet A or wallet B, that you can use any wallet and have the same experience.
Yeah. So one of the, all block producers, essentially, they kind of favor kind of a different take on what they bring to the ecosystem, right? And different block producers all are doing different great things. But I always like to think of you guys as kind of like the everyman's block producer in a way, because with your technology background and trying to meld beyond crypto, I call them real world technologies that people use every day into the ecosystem in a way that people can recognize blockchain easier. Because the thing is with blockchain, a lot of blockchain users, they think differently and they operate differently. This is not normal for normal users. So I think it's really cool what you guys have done, coming in with your wallet and making that, and as well, looking at it later and then saying, okay, well, EOS, the idea of EOS in general was great. The fact that you could have free transactions, but it's not really attracting people from other blockchains because there's all this, some might call it FUD, but it was a realistic issue at the time. There was there still is an onboarding issue, and there was an issue with people having to stake so many resources that it wasn't usable. So I'm just curious about the backstory, if you wouldn't mind. You guys have had a lot of big contributions. There's a list of probably about 25 or 30 or so, but I was just kind of curious about the backstory. How long was Anchor Wallet in the works in terms of planning? Where did the idea come from? Because I think you guys have this almost strange capacity to be able to think outside the box of where most EOS IO developers are coming from, in my personal opinion. And that's meant as one of the biggest compliments, because you're looking at the real world trying to get people into EOS, but you're also looking at how people operate in the rest of the crypto sphere that hasn't figured out that, EOS can be easier. And you've kind of melded these two worlds together, in my opinion. Of course, I could be completely wrong, but that's the way that I see it.
There's a lot of truth to that. And I think that comes from just kind of our long history in this space. Most of our team met through Steam, one of Dan's former projects. We were part of that community who were like, hey, there's this cool blogging thing that, you can earn tokens from and be involved in this development of this platform. Both Scott and I were block producers on that network, and one of our other team members used to work for Steemit Inc. And during that time, we kind of saw these struggles of something as simple as a blogging platform struggling to be adopted. A lot of us, I shouldn't say all of us, but a lot of us on our team were working on products at that point. We were trying to build content-based products that, you know, anybody could use and not know they were using a blockchain. Like, it was supposed to be that simple. And we ran into just lots of issues as product developers trying to build usable products. And so that's when we started taking a step back and we're like, okay, if we want the products that we imagine to function, we need to step back and think about like the end user experience in the wallet. So that was like 4+ years ago. And so that's when we started thinking about things like Anchor. And then as EOS started its initial launch trajectory before the chain was even out, and as it launched and up until today, that's kind of been our mission. It's just, let's make this easy. Let's make it so people can build applications on top of these blockchain platforms. And so that's kind of been the driving force for us to do things like Anchor, like Fuel. We have account creation coming out in the near future. We saw these hurdles while we were building our products. Like, you know, I was building a forum, for example, like old school PHP BB style forum where it was threaded comments and whatever, but it was built on the blockchain and it was so hard to get people to join. So we all kind of stepped back and we were like, this is the area we're going to focus on. We're going to focus on the user experience. We're going to focus on the front end, and we need to build the tools so products like that can be successful. And we're still working on it today, and here we are. We've moved platforms. We're supporting all of EOSIO. We're a block producer on a lot of networks. We focus pretty heavily on EOS itself. And we're getting close. We have a lot of tools coming out early this year that hopefully will excite developers and help them build the products they imagine can exist and can, enable these networks. And hopefully we as developers will be able to get back to products like that, like actual, here's a dApp, because it's been years since we've been able to focus on that.
Yeah, so that you said it much better than but essentially that's what I was kind of trying to say. Like, different block producers focus on different things, and you guys are like the toolkit block producer in a way. Like you seem to be focused on that. EOS, for example, I think they're kind of like more focused on community, and all of these different projects are needed. And I think I wanted to ask another question as well, and I wanted to ask you. Corey asked about Fuel, and I think everyone kind of knows about that. But you guys also have something that is called the ESR protocol, or the EOSIO signing request protocol. That was one thing I kind of wanted to ask about. And then the second thing I also wanted to ask about, and then probably we should take some questions from the audience. But the second thing I kind of wanted to ask about was it's the EOSIO wallet. And a lot of other wallets in the space have either focused on one chain or a few chains. But, in the end days, kind of, when Scatter was building, they were mostly focused on some EOSIO stuff. But Token Pocket has and Neat One, these like older wallets have kind of added Ethereum or other like non-EOSIO based blockchains. I'm just curious, do you guys have a plan to add these, or is it even necessary? Like, it might not even be necessary now with the bridge gaps of the P token networks and things like that. I just kind of wanted to know if you could comment on that.
Sure. I mean, to answer the first question, or the second question first, we've talked about other networks, like, adding Bitcoin or adding whatever we feel would fit well within it. It's just been a matter of time. We are exclusively right now focused on the EOSIO protocols, and adding in something like Bitcoin or whatever other token you might imagine is just going to require us to reach outside of that kind of bubble that we're working within right now. It's not out of the realm of possibility. It's just we haven't had the time just yet. And go back to the first question, the EOSIO signing request protocol. That is something that kind of is at the core of Anchor and how Anchor works. It's an example of how we're taking the tech that we're building and open sourcing it and trying to make it standards. We want other wallets to adopt this approach because we've been, trying to work and refine and build the best user experience possible. And these parts are huge contributors to making it easy. So I think it was early last year, we kind of released a draft of this specification that is a tool that it allows for applications to talk to wallets in like a really secure manner. There's a lot of these on a lot of other networks, and we took inspiration from like how Bitcoin does it and how Ethereum does it and the technologies that we had previously built on Steam and some of these other platforms. And we've adopted it to work as efficiently as possible with the EOSIO stack. So it's a protocol that we use. Like when you click something on a website and Anchor opens, that's what's doing it. It's the signing request protocol. And we have some other kind of protocols besides that happen in the background as well, that we also are either planning on open sourcing or have open sourced already. So, we as an organization right now are getting paid by the community through being a block producer. And so we're kind of returning all of this technology back into the ecosystem as open source. So, everybody else can build and improve upon it.
So this is probably going to be a ridiculous pivot, but I like
do it.
It's what we do, or well, it's what I do. Like just knowing how much block producers are doing building tools, right? I mean, that's sort of been, one of the really cool things, just for me personally, talking to people like you, talking to Michael from EOS USA and other people in the space where the sort of incentive model is, hey, like build a bunch of cool shit. And people will vote for you. I like it, right? And I think that is a model that is still like relatively new on the face of the earth. And I think I'm just excited to see that work, right? Where from like a really like a 30,000 foot view, where do you see all of this going?
Well, I mean, it's been a struggle, over the past couple of years. EOS was the first one where it was, hey, organizations are block producers. Like you have a whole team acting as a block producer. Before that, all these DPoS networks were individuals. Like when we were on Steam and some of the other networks before this, it was, we were candidates as individuals. And it was what individual contributions could you bring? And with the launch of EOS, that was kind of flipped on its head. And it's like, no, these are going to be organizations. And you build a team with that kind of, that financing you're receiving with this new kind of business model, and see what you can contribute as a team. So you're right. This is absolutely new. It's whether it's succeeding or not is, goes back and forth constantly. We have organizations that we don't know what they're doing, which is interesting. And then you have organizations that kind of are incumbents at this point, that they just exist as BPs and they provide values in some ways. But it's really hard to compete with that kind of entrenched position that they might have right now. So at a large 30,000 foot view, like you were talking about, it's a super interesting social experiment that's going on right now. There are a couple organizations like ours that are, we're making it by right now. We're by no means able to grow or kind of, I don't want to use the word succeed. Like we are successful in many ways, but I think there's things that could be improved in the process, so that way this experiment can play out. The way that we like to look at it is that we don't have customers. Well, we might in the future, but anyways, by just the way the system works naturally, we've started off and we don't have customers. You know, our products are free. We have like constituents essentially where people vote for us. There are voters. We need to kind of, it's like we're almost a politician in a way that we have to represent the people who vote for us and provide value to them. Like, where else do you see that?
Yeah, nowhere really, right?
Yeah.
So like and again, as a total layman, you know, it seems like the challenges so far, you know, because of the way the delegated proof of stake works, yeah, there are exchanges that are acting as BPs. That, I mean, obviously, you know, if they're holding a bunch or of EOS or whatever, you know, they could basically end up having a lot more votes potentially, or just, you know, like having a larger platform. Is that one, like, am I right about that? Is that one of the challenges, or like what are the other ways that power is being centralized in a way that isn't necessarily serving that incentive model, right? I mean, exchanges are great. Like, we all use them. They're create markets. That's important.
Yeah.
But you know, like, do I have that right? Like, where you know, the incentive model that is working for block producers, like you guys clearly are building lots of tools, and, you know, people like, you know, our buddy EOSIO Mike, you know, whatever, like that. Like, is that where the incentive model is breaking down?
Yeah, I mean, and there's different breeds of block producers. Like, our value is that we do bring these tools and we bring this experience, and we try to solve problems. Whereas you have other BP type organizations like exchanges, like you mentioned, that the value they bring is that they bring liquidity and access to the system.
Right.
And that's got a certain value. And I am assuming, I you know, I don't have the inner workings of an exchange, but I'm assuming that the rewards that they earn go to, you know, making sure that the EOS network is well supported on their platform, that they're able to provide liquidity, that they're able to bring in users and, you know, get them on network. But that is subjective and kind of happens in a black box. So I think that's my biggest beef is that, like, you can see the progress that we're making and the stuff that we're releasing and the value that we're adding, but you can't quite see that on this centralized exchange side of things. So
yeah, thanks for adding that, because I cringed there when you said that. I really wanted to keep liking you, but I wasn't really sure where you're going there. Yeah, we really need to get some exchange BPs on here. I mean, Nudex is a little bit of a different breed, I think, because they're, you know, homegrown kind of EOS. And there's a couple other homegrown EOS ones as well. But like, you see this on you know, social media and stuff a lot, but this is my own personal opinion, no one else's, is that if you are an exchange and you're not actively listing, EOS-based projects, then you shouldn't be allowed to be a block producer. And unfortunately, that flies in the face of everything that is decentralization.
Right.
I understand that. I realize that, but it's almost like, I'm not going to go into conspiracy theories. I've got like 3 different personalities per week, potentially more, and I'm, you know, I'd like to have 5 so that, you know, we can tailor towards
round it all out,
the guests. But yeah, that's my personal opinion, and I think that's like kind of should be a necessity that you know, like there's certain networks on EOS that this actually leads into another little bit of a pivot. If Corey was done, I don't know if you wanted to add to that.
Yeah, no, go ahead.
But another pivot I wanted to ask is there's certain there's certain block producers that have a focus on like EOSIO as a whole. Like I know you guys are focused from the, you know, creation of things that can be usable on EOSIO, like the wallet interacts with, I think, every EOSIO protocol that is out there, every chain that's out there. And there's other projects that are like focused mostly on EOS. And so, like, for me, again, I kind of feel like there's block producers that are, you know, working really hard for both the EOS mainnet and some of these other chains, and sometimes they get a hard time from the community, and like there's a lot of people in the community that don't understand what's going on, and then there's a lot of people in the community that do understand what's going on, and they're angry about it, and that's okay. But
Yeah.
the idea of confusing, Block One and EOS, or EOS with EOSIO, other chains, it is really like frustrating and annoying. And there's a lot of block producers that I'm kind of closely associated with that do really great things on other chains, and then they get kind of kickback from the EOS maximalists or the EOS haters, or the people who think that EOS isn't decentralized. And I just kind of wonder, like, again, don't want to get into too many politics, but I'm just kind of curious, like, as a block producer who's creating tools, I mean, obviously you're focused on EOS, but do you try to give equal weight and proportion beyond the Anchor wallet to other chains, or are you primarily focused on the mainnet?
When we're building tooling, we try to make it like we don't want to add things that are exclusive to networks specifically. It's the stack behind all of the, like, Wax and Telos and EOS and FIO, and FIO to some degree. It's all kind of built on this core foundation, and so that's where we try to operate as well. Like, it's when we build it, we're testing against the EOS testnets and EOS and some of these other networks regularly. So that's kind of our building mentality. And then when it comes to governance and actual, like, chain specific initiatives, we do have a pretty heavy focus on EOS and some of the other chains like Wax and Telos that are doing specific things on their networks. So it's really a mixed bag. I think that the focus on all of them adds value to all of them. It adds interoperability. It's when we were talking about wallets and, like, us supporting Bitcoin and Anchor, like that's a value add because it makes it easier for users, and it adds, like, this familiarity across these different ecosystems. And we feel the same way about the EOSIO chains. It's easy to focus on EOS because it's kind of, the big player in the room. And so it gets that kind of attention given to it. But then when we're talking about things like NFTs, everybody, kind of looks at Wax because that's something that's really been a focus there. So if we were to start working on NFT related features within a wallet, we'd probably have a greater focus on Wax just because that's where the vast majority of these projects exist and are being used, just because it's cheaper in some ways.
Yeah, I think you bring up a really good point, though, too, as well. Like, like you said, you're in the system, you're working in the system, you're dedicating yourself to the system, but we're still in early days, so it's sometimes hard to make ends meet. And there are cases. I think Blocks.io mentioned this in one of their posts, because I think they weren't supporting the images to the NFTs in the Explorer, and they kind of pointed out that, like, well, it doesn't really make sense for us to dedicate the resources to that, considering that you can go into the WaxCloud wallet and see them all there, as well as Atomic Assets now, which has come out, and you're able to see everything there. So I think you make a very valid point, right? Like, there's no point to focus on some of these things if you're a team that's stretched focusing on 100 things already. You need to cut some of them back and focus on what really matters for the end users.
Yeah, it's a delicate balancing act. So, and kind of to go back, and again, not to dwell on politics or anything, but there's kind of this disproportionate balance of exchanges versus other types of BPs right now on a network like EOS. It's it's going to ebb and flow in different directions, and we hope that it shifts back towards the what our kind of BP is, obviously. But we do have to spread ourselves a little bit and kind of offer that support to these other networks, because it is how we make ends meet. It's not an insignificant portion of our our team's paycheck to help these other networks as well. And that might be a different story if this kind of imbalance of types of BPs didn't exist on kind of the biggest network that we have right now. But it's the reality of how it is, and it's up to the token holders to decide that.
Yeah, and just to be direct, you can say whatever you want. Like Corey and I actually had this conversation today, and like I guess we kind of maybe mutually came to the conclusion that like we want to have a show where people can come and share what they're doing and share what they want to say. And we don't want to pull people into drama. So like if you want to go off on a rant and complain about whatever you want to go off on, for sure, go for it. But our questions to you are kind of going to towards the
But I think like you're fucking smart, dude. And everybody we talk to are like super smart people. So I think we can pivot whenever there's things like that. Cause like I really want to know, like if you had a magic wand, and or like basically what would you be doing to improve this system so that the incentives were better for the actual builders like you, for basically like what's the way to create more traction and more support going to the people and groups that are producing more value for the entire ecosystem?
I pitched this idea years ago, even I think it was in the Steam voting ecosystem, when we were trying to figure out ways to allocate inflation. Essentially, that's what BP voting is. It's how are we allocating inflation to who, and how are they contributing value to the system. And I kind of likened it to a class type system in a video game, where we need to divide, or one option is to divide up the BPs into like buckets. Like, let's have a bucket for liquidity providers. Let's have a bucket for tool builders. Let's have a bucket for community building. And then you have people vote within those buckets. And then there's not one list of 21. Maybe there's 3 lists of 7. And each BP competes in one of those lists of 7. And that together makes up the 21 BPs. And then you have, instead of voting, well, like, oh, I think it's more important my vote's going to this exchange because they're doing X, Y, and Z. It could be, you have these votes in these different buckets based on specific criteria. It's like if you're voting for different parts of government, you're voting for representatives, you're voting for presidents, you're voting for whatever. There's different positions to fill, essentially. So that's been one thing I've kind of been kicking around for a while. I've never made a formal proposal about it, but I think that there's some merit in that idea, and that could help elevate the different, it could help smooth out the imbalances that I think exist right now.
It reminds me of some of we've been tossing around ideas for the governance model inside the Uplift, which is the world that we're going to be making in that Minecraft layer. And having sector DAOs, it's basically like we've got the central city, but we've already got Western City. We've got the community cluster that is getting very, very full very fast, which is super fun to see. And thinking in terms of like, I personally, I've been thinking in terms of like a trifecta. There's going to be a lot of people building art pieces in game that get turned into NFTs. That's something that is sort of happened already. Like, we raised like $5,000 for a charity selling off like a tiny little block of land that had a Burning Man on it, which was really fun. But a lot of other people have been doing that since, even before we've opened it up. So artists are going to be a huge part of it. Just players are going to be a huge part of it, and then of course landowners, right? So I was thinking, it'd be really, really cool to have a voting structure that basically allowed action in game, like incentivized actions in game that are punching out rewards in wax or NFTs by each one of those types. Could allow them to basically vote for 3 representatives that would basically run each place, right? And to think of it in terms of like a super simple, because we're it's a game, but at the same time, like, we really, like, I want to have active funded accounts for these sectors based on the activity that's going on in the sector, because it becomes like a whole other game strata. But it also can have that capacity to create a sort of collective effort that improves the land value for literally all the landowners, makes the experience better for the players, and of course makes a richer environment for the artists, right? So that's probably like a super dumbed down version of what you're saying, but basically, like, there are different things that are producing value that are necessary for a blockchain ecosystem like EOS or like the EOSIO family, and they finding ways to serve them all better just seems like a really, really good ROI.
Yeah, I mean, we have one big bucket right now, and everybody competes in this same bucket. And if it were divided up, it could either be divided up by role, or it could even be divided somehow in regionality, because you need support in different regions of the world, because different regions of the world have different needs. So I'm sure that the stuff we're working on doesn't fit the needs of different regions out there. So there's a lot of different ways to divide it up.
Different perspectives and different viewpoints, right? Like I'm a kind of a philosopher historian by nature, and one of the things that like drives me crazy recently is when people say like it's common sense, right? Like I've traveled to like a few dozen countries, and I've lived in quite a few as well. And like, no, it's not common sense. What's common sense in America is not common sense in Japan, is not common sense in China. And so I really like your idea a lot. I never actually thought about it in terms of block producers, but it's very DAC-DAOish. And I've been involved in a couple of DACs and a couple of DAOs, and it sounds a lot like DAClify. The way that they set up DAClify, I'm not sure if you're familiar with DAClify or not. But like it's very similar, where you like have a representative that is representing other people that like get voted in, and then you have these blocks and stuff. So I would love to see that proposed, Aaron. If you ever do it, I mean, I don't even know, maybe. It's really cool though. Yeah, sorry, you kind of got me excited there.
No, there's so many things we could do with governance on a network like this, and divide it up and make it more intelligent, and however the system ends up being. But right now we kind of just have this base layer, and I think we need the will to improve it somehow. There's been kind of a stagnation in it. When we first joined EOS, we had hoped that we would see an evolution of that system into something more complex, but not too complex, that would exist like this. And maybe we still will. It's going to take a matter of somebody spearheading that initiative. And while we don't have that capacity at this moment in time, it maybe in the future, I don't know.
I kind of feel like in a lot of ways, EOS is full of hypocrites on every level, except for the people that we have on the show and we don't kick off. No, but I kind of like really do like the haters. The haters are getting angry because Block One has too much control, and then not supporting the ecosystem. And then when Dan leaves, they're like, oh, but like Dan left, the blockchain's gonna die, right? Like you have the EOS, like the EOS main chain maximalists that are like, EOS, not EOSIO. Sorry, I shouldn't say it in that way as a proper as a proper person that's trying not to be biased, but I am biased. This is against my bias. Like,
I don't think we ever said we weren't going to be biased.
No.
That's we're not even going to try that. That's for professionals.
Well, yeah, but I should, because we've had enough of my 35-minute rants this week, and it's only Monday. But yeah, like I think where I'm coming from, right? Like we live in such this like big ecosystem with all of these different parts, and like I'm happy to see like block producers and people who are like bringing real value to the people who are still here, to the people who are still a part of this ecosystem, whether they've migrated over to Wax and they love the technology, whether they're looking at Ultra, whether they're, still looking at the main chain and the security that it provides, and the fact that like no one gets a free pass, but it's like there's part of a free pass there for Block One at least, right? Like, because from the SEC, so from the SEC, right? And so what I kind of think is like, you're 100% right. You have, in terms of governance issues, governance providers, like maybe there's a cartel. I don't know. If there's a cartel, should there be a cartel? Probably not. But you can't just create a blockchain. You can't just create a new form of governance. You can't just create a new form of money. And we've seen this with Ethereum, in my opinion, again, and expect, like, because it's decentralized, that people are going to act in a decentralized way. I mean, if it was that easy, we would just create a new country and say, look, nobody dies and everyone lives happy, prosperous lives in a food forest that's created by Jimmy D and designed by Cottrell. That would be, like, you know, the utopia that we would all live in. But we need to find a way to match our old world views and the personalities that we've developed over our lifetime living in the real world to the decentralization that we profess to be an advocate of. And more times than not, that decentralized aspect of our thinking gets left at the door when we involve a profit motive, which is why essentially a lot of us are here. That's my rant anyway.
No, there's problems here, and I would like to see more governance existing. You know, it's a hard position to be in when we're supposed to have this kind of governed network that's still decentralized and can have all these other properties that we desire of the blockchain, but like there needs to be some kind of evolution that's occurring, and you know, it's going to come from the people and the stakeholders pushing on that. We're, like I kind of started with, our focus on this has been to making it so that, you know, this stuff's accessible right now and that it's usable and that it's easy, but there's also this other side of things where the governance itself needs to somehow evolve and improve itself. It needs to identify its own problems and then fix its own problems. It needs to, there's so many things.
I like it a lot, though. Like, your representative idea is great. And, like, you know, Corey, he dabbles in politics a little sometimes. I mean, he kind of
Don't tell anyone. For the love of God, don't tell anyone. So, like, and this is something that kind of fascinates me, though. Like, what, you know, and I definitely don't want to get into sort of the quote unquote politics, like the kind of drama bit of it, because we're thinking about changing the name of the channel to the Uplifters, right? And it's sort of, we're you know, building the Uplift land, and we work with Uplift Art, blah 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 blah. But like the vibe of it really is that I get really stoked, you know, being able to talk to somebody like you, and honestly the vast majority of the guests that we've had on so far, because they're actually building shit that are trying to improve shit, right? Just put that on a bumper stick somewhere. And so, like, the politics bit of it, you know, it is essential for us to communicate that. So if we as a show can be part of the way that, you know, outfits like yours can share those things that they're doing, and, you know, I think as a potential, you know, kind of underlying principle of the show, like, we need to be able to, you know, collect that power and then apply it where it needs to be applied, right? So we've been talking about having a proxy, but I think it makes a lot more sense to you know, basically be adopting proxies every once in a while. Like, we, you know, we've talked to Anders and we've talked to whatever. Do you guys have a proxy that you run?
We have a proxy. We don't necessarily run it.
Okay.
It's been something that we've been thinking about building into kind of our products as like a, hey, you know, if you'd like to support us, here's something you can do.
Right.
That we kind of drove off that path, though, as the reward proxies really started to kind of take over, and the search for a return kind of became a big part of the motivation of people voting.
Yeah.
We're not going to launch a rewards proxy. It's sticky territory that regulation and money transmitter laws and all this other stuff that we just don't want to be involved in. So we'll probably integrate our proxy and launch it at some point, but our expectations of it doing what we thought it would do are just not quite as high as originally thought.
Right.
I'm a really busy guy, but I might, you know, DM you and kind of steal your idea, because what if you built a proxy that operated on the same level as your idea? What if you built a proxy and you allowed everyone to come in and you said, okay, you're going to pick 3 block producers that are exchanges. You're going to pick 3 block producers that are like building tools. You're going to pick 3 block producers that are social community. They could vote, and then you could, according to those rules and regulations behind democracy, your proxy would vote according to all of the people who joined your proxy. Like that's you're brilliant in 1,010 ways.
Well, but you just crystallized all of that in a way that we could actually do it now. Like that we can exercise that power as an example, which is something that I really freaking love. Like you take the microcosm of it and just start proving it, right? Like, who are the people that are actually out there building? What do we want to support? And again, like to your point, like the silos, instead of just having that be an imaginary thing, it's suddenly living in the world, and people can support that if they want to. So now, Jimmy, you're just gonna have to get that shit built. Sorry, buddy.
I like the idea, but I'm with you. I think if we're gonna do something like this, we'll do it on EOS, and we'll support people who are on other chains who know way more than us, like Anders or Kiefer, or some of the people who are running blockchains on other places. But yeah, for an EOS based proxy, Aaron, if I know you guys are busy too, but like if we do this, would you look at it and tell us like what you think? Like that'd be pretty cool to have.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we never have a problem picking ideas apart. It's when we're asked to implement them that we're like, we see the full scope of that, and the timing is going to be rough. So it's something we can look at, and it's something we'll happily kind of, poke holes in. Just to kind of a little bit of background on us, we pushed really hard in the political side of things before EOS on other DPoS networks. And I think our frustration and lack of being able to like make any progress is why we are so heads down focused on tech now. But we have opinions, and we will happily try to break ideas and find ways to improve them.
Yeah, that's awesome, and I think that's something that we're kind of passionate about as well. And like I know you guys are super busy. Like you're like we've had this conversation before. You're really busy, but I would love to like explore some of these ideas. And
it'd be great to see them in practice.
And it's funny because I wanted to say the other thing too is like you're the first person that I met that lives on the opposite side of the world that pretty much stays awake at the same times in your part of the world that I do in my times. And it's funny because like I think I'm not outing you here, but you were saying I just kind of wanted to go over this because you guys you're not just like an American BP. It sounds like a really good movie, but anyway, like you were saying like you do actually have connections in Asia, like and in Japan in particular. Like a lot of times you're up very late, like working on meetings and stuff. Like there's this idea in the EOS ecosystem whereby you're either east or you're west. There's this like vision of protocols, but like you were telling me, you're like, 9 o'clock. I mean, it's 9 o'clock. Most people are awake, but like for me, it's difficult because I have someone in Asia that I meet on a regular basis that like, that in the EOSIO developers playground, there's a lot of these people that are going back and forth, like one side of the world to the other, and that's kind of cool, I think.
Yeah, we have a very small segment of technical expertise that we can tap into for an organization like ours. It needs to be somebody that's really passionate about this kind of technology and the direction this technology is going, as well as someone crazy enough to dedicate their time to this with a very uncertain paycheck. So like our team is distributed. We have people moving around, and getting meetings scheduled can be difficult when you have people on all portions of the world. So yeah, like I woke up maybe 30 minutes before this call and started drinking coffee, but like tomorrow night I'll have a meeting that's at like 8:30 p.m. my time because that's morning for someone else. And it's working in a distributed environment like this has its challenges, but it's super rewarding, and having people, everywhere that have just these diverse views and the same passion and drive that all of our team has.
I like it. All right, so we got to start wrapping up because I got a hard stop in about 3 minutes. But Aaron, thank you so much for coming on, man.
Yeah. Thanks for having me. I will reach out if you guys have other stuff you want to talk about, or
yeah, well, I think we definitely want to have you back on each of our days our theme, but I think we definitely want to have you or someone on our team back on Tech Talk on a Tuesday just to go over the Anchor wallet and what's all involved in detail and how it benefits the ecosystem. So maybe next month, if you guys are free, someone's free, they can pop on Tech Talk on a Tuesday and give us the rundown.
Absolutely.
I actually just started using, I remember Anchor, because I right around the Genesis and doing the swap and stuff. I think I used your early wallet to do that. Then I kind of didn't really mess with it too much after that. And I just downloaded it again. Our buddy on Blue from Uplift Art was saying he's been using that for the most part, and I went back there and it's just slick as it's just slick as fuck. I was like, should I swear right now? Yes, I did. It is slick as fuck. Like if you haven't used the Anchor wallet in a while, go grab it, because it's just that's just put this on the slogan. It's slick as fuck. It's really, really good. And so and taking it through and I think running through some of the features and some of the sort of decisions you guys made in the production of it, I think would be really cool for everyone as well. Yeah, we can definitely do that. And talking about kind of the direction we're going with mobile would also be interesting as well. Yes. We have lots of, the first half of this year is going to just be a slew of releases of new stuff from us. So I'm excited to start talking about that and get that into people's hands as well. Love it.
Definitely going to book you for next month to talk about that, because mobile, breaking into mobile and releases, that's totally what we want to. We want demos and mobile's going to be a game changer.
Yep. 100%.
Thank you so much for joining us, Aaron. And I'll let Corey walk us out, because he's got to go in 2 minutes. So.
Sounds good.
I've been last week I actually blew off a whole other show because we were having way too much fun on this one. So cheers to everybody who came in. Thank you to everybody who shared this out. I sent no less than 3 NFTs to everybody that got them. The network is still weird, so some of the address didn't work, but I know some of them are real addresses. They just didn't work. I tried my best. We got about 80% of the people that shared out. Come back tomorrow, because we do this freaking every weekday now. Adrian from Wombat Wallet is coming on.
And NFT Army and everyone else, we're gonna, we've got Ash from the NFT Army on Wednesday, and we've got a really cool announcement that involves NFTs coming on Wednesday. Come back tomorrow. It'll be fun. Tomorrow we've got Adrian from Wombat Wallet, and on Wednesday we've got a NFT announcement. We hope, if we can get it done, and it's going to be cool. I don't want to swear now. Why are we doing this? It's going to be cool as shit.
I don't even know why I almost stopped myself. I'm like, who the fuck do I think I am? It doesn't even make any sense. Anyway, thanks guys. We'll see you tomorrow. We got tons of really cool shit going on this week, and thanks for joining us.